Hi, welcome to the Faces of Façades. I'm Aaron Cedar. Today I'm joined by Tim Debets from Permasteelisa Group, who's working as lead concept design. Tim, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you. Thanks for
Okay.
having me.
Okay, well, before we go into concept design, I want to start right at the beginning. So, how did you first find your way into the facade world?
It's a quite a good question. I never really anticipated to work in facades or even in the construction industry. So I studied mechanical engineering, and at the end of that, actually had a very nice internship in the car industry, developing engines, and I thought I always wanted to go in that direction. And when then looking actually for a job, I was approached by a recruiter, and it appeared that quite close by home there was a very big company that did facades all over the world. Never thought about it, never heard of the company before, and it just looked stunning. Really impressive buildings. It was a chance to work locally, but also to work abroad. And actually, a few of my colleague students that I used to study with, they also went there. So it was a very nice environment to actually start working in, and everything for me was actually completely new. So mechanical engineering background, and then sucked into construction. So I was actually more thinking about, let's say, the production processes. That was very aligned, but construction for me was quite new. So that's how I landed in the facade industry.
Great, and that was with Scheldenbel, I guess.
Well, it was actually called Permasteelisa Central Europe at the time, and we were actually a separate company from Scheldenbel, both in the Netherlands, and they were at the coast, and we were actually both under the umbrella of the Permasteelisa Group, but actually still completely two separate companies at that time.
Okay, so I mean, looking back now, were there any early moments or experiences that really shaped how you think about the facades and the world you work in today?
Yeah, well, so the first project I started working on was actually in Paris, and I spoke a little bit French. I had it in high school. I was not a mastermind in French, but I could help myself. So they were very happy with that in the project team. So I was sent off with my little laptop bag to Paris straight away to sit in the design office there. And that was really a nice experience for me to actually be able to work from there, and also to see the building go up in La Défense, in the business district of Paris, and to stand on top of the building. Then I really got the feeling of what does it actually entail to work in the facade industry and to make buildings of this shape and size. And then in a city like that, very nice that you have later something when you visit with your family, that you can say, oh, 20 years ago I was actually working on that job that is standing right there. So that was definitely an eye opener for me at the time.
Sure. So fast forward to today, and now you sit right at the front end of projects.
Yes.
How do you personally approach concept design when there's so much is still uncertain?
Yes, that is actually that is quite interesting, because the uncertainty is actually something that I usually don't like to work with. I like to structure things. I'm quite structured for myself. So if it's unstructured, I try to make it into something that you can actually overlook, that is clear, and I try to clarify it for other people. So, and I think that helps for in the position where I work in. So when you're that early involved, there's so many variables, and you turn one dial, and all the other dials also turn. So you are talking about the aesthetics, you are talking about all the facade performance, whether it's fire or burglary, or it's the U value. Embodied carbon is now also added to the mix. And then there's, of course, the link to the cost plan and the program. So to bring all of these together and actually at the beginning of every project, it feels a bit like a matrix. You have all these different options with all different outcomes, and you have to map that out clearly to the client team, just to see if you do this, then this will change to the cost, this will change to the program. Can we afford that? It will do this to the embodied carbon. Can we afford it to do that, or do we need to move in other direction? So it's actually quite nice once you've mapped it out. You can actually steer this team through, so you can hit your cost, you can hit your program, and you can actually lay it out for them in an early stage. So that is what I really like about this work, to structure something that was very unstructured.
You're balancing everything and
Trying
putting it all together.
Yeah, but you're working with so many different people, so it's that is also the interesting part of it. You have to accommodate everybody a little bit in there, but only when you actually show it to everybody, you can get the support for that by explaining it properly.
So where do you see the biggest decisions being made before contracts are signed?
Well, the biggest decisions, it's often very often when we are involved, when we are lucky, we are involved, let's say in London in a stage 2, then you can really still see where it's going, also regarding planning conditions. You can still advise the architect a little bit before they go full out with planning. Normally we are maybe involved in stage 3. So you already have certain planning conditions that are signed off, and you have to work with that. But you might find out that actually this is not very aligned with the budget yet. So then more difficult discussions start. You want to accommodate the client because you also don't want to jeopardize the feasibility of the whole project. So you have to be very conscious of that. What is actually our budget? What does the planning commission have approved? And we have to work within those margins to make it work. But there's still building regulations. There's still a technical specification. So that is where you actually see the constraints coming in. When already certain things are fixed, you can't move away from them anymore, but you still have to make it work within time and within budget.
So you're involved in a lot of aspects of projects, which is obviously very interesting, and no 2 days must be the same for you.
No, and all the projects are very different with very different people working on it. But I mean, we've also got a very big team internally working on this. I mean, you cannot do this on your own. There is so many different expertises. So from actually our tender departments, where they do the estimating and the calculating, to let's say the system design departments, where they do the detailed design. They analyze all the specifications, and then every material you work with, whether it's glass, or aluminum, or steel, or it's terracotta or stone, it is an expertise on its own. You can study your whole life on one of those materials alone, and you have to bring it all together. So you're always working with a lot of people, and you always have to really rely on their input to make one logical story out of it. So in the end, it's always really a team effort. And on the chair where I sit, and also my colleague sales managers, we are the ones that hand it over to the client. But there's a lot that has happened in the background before that.
Yeah, I mean, once the building has been and the facades been installed and the building's finished, it's great. Your job's done. But how important are the human dynamics inside the teams that you work in during those early phases?
So internally, it's for us. Let's say the dynamics within a tender team is always quite hectic in the beginning, because there are so many variables and you have a limited time to actually put an offer on the table. So while you're actually doing all the analyses of the documents, you're also already drawing up some designs, some cost plans, some programs, maybe some methodology. So within that team, it goes very fast, and you're constantly updating each other on that. Then once you give it over to the project execution team, you have to have a very clear package for them to actually work into and get started with that. And then it becomes actually a matter of handing it over properly and actually letting a little bit go. It's
Mm.
I've worked on this project for maybe half a year, sometimes even a year or longer.
Mm.
But there has to also be a moment in which you can let it go and trust the execution team, the project team, to actually take it over
Mm.
and bring it to a good end. Sometimes that's not easy.
Yeah.
To do that.
Sure. I mean, you've obviously worked on a lot of high value, technically challenging projects over the years. It's probably hard for you to pick one or two highlights, but is there a project that really stands out where the concept design stage really influenced the final outcome?
Yeah, I think that but most of the buildings, the actually that we do, the early concepts are actually followed through the entire design. So the thing is always that we really focus on those main facade typologies that have big volume or high complexity.
Mm.
And those have to be followed through. So you can see that really in a system design, they really work it out in really intricate details. But there are also often many parts of the building that are not even looked at in an early stage, and that a design team has to actually really come up with it from scratch. So I think there's really a difference in there. I think that the parts where we really went deep in concept design, that was also always really followed through. I think one of my favorite buildings that we worked on so far was in Warsaw, Warsaw Tower. It's actually the highest building right now in the European Union. And they had, I think, 25, 26 different facade types right to start off with. So the tender department had a really tough job in fixing all those before the execution team can actually really take those over, understand what it really means. I think that is one of the projects that impressed me the most.
Okay. So moving on to innovation in facades and what the future holds. When you look at the facade market today, what changes feel sort of genuinely meaningful rather than just something that's maybe fashionable?
Really meaningful. Well, I think that there are definitely there's a very big view now on the embodied carbon. Of course, you hear it in all the presentations. It's all out there. But you do see now that there's also budget made available for that. So the technologies that can deliver actually lower embodied carbon engineering solutions or materials, they are actually really valued now, and they are also already early taken into account in projects. And there are budgets available to make this work. And I mean, that has a genuine impact. If we make embodied carbon calculations now, we can really see that we are constantly reducing it. And it's just black on white, on paper, comparable. So I would say that is really genuinely something that is working.
Okay.
On the other hand, I think that technologies that look at more, let's say, resilience on buildings to adapt for future climate change is also something that is really coming up more and more. We try to reduce as much embodied carbon as we can. But we also have to face the future and protect our internal climates for maybe higher or more temperature extremes, climate extremes that are actually coming. And you also see that coming back in the specifications and in building designs right now.
Okay. So sustainability and the carbon targets, they're influencing concept design decisions in reality right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, heavily. It has become really just a performance specification where it's just the targets are really set, and it's actually on a par with cost. When we do, so when we in the early stages really do design concepts, the clients want to really see what is my impact on cost and program, but also what is my impact on carbon. And sometimes it means that, or actually most of the time, it is that less carbon also means less money. If you go from an engineering solution where you reduce carbon, you are somewhere in a smarter solution with less material, which has generically also less cost. So that is actually good for our clients. When you go really to alternative materials, there might be some price uplifts, but we also really expect that will flatten out in the future as more materials actually become available. Yeah.
So, I mean, looking ahead into the future, you mentioned more materials becoming available. Where do you think facade design specifically is heading? I don't know, in the next 10, 20 years, say?
Well, I think it's it also really depends on the city where the building is made. We saw now in London there are quite a few high-rise all glass buildings, often with sun shading devices or CCF, closed cavity facade technology to keep your solar gains low enough to actually being able to afford such an all glass building. But we also see now in plans that are coming up on the next high-rise projects that there is actually more playful facades. So there are a little bit more features on the outside. It's not all glass. They also work with other materials. There's nice sheetwork features on it. There's maybe some GRC, some natural stone on it. There's much more outdoor environments where they cut up the high rise certain levels where you have nice outdoor environments. The buildings feel then for the occupant also very different. It's more interaction with the outside, but they also look very different from the outside, from the street level. And you can really see that it's heading more in that direction, especially in London.
All right, interesting. And supporting the next wave and the next generation of people coming into the industry. You obviously work with a lot of young designers, work closely with them. What skills matter most for these people entering the industry today?
Well, I always think that like when you come from your studies, then everybody has kind of the same background knowledge about your engineering or architectural specialism that you studied. But I think what really matters more and more nowadays, I think, is people skills. That is also something that I think is not fully replaceable by any digital technology. So if you have an engineering skill and an engineering education, but you also have people skills, you are able to explain an engineering solution to a different crowd of people, maybe an architect, maybe another engineer, maybe to an investor, where you all speak to on a different level of technology, then you really can make a difference. You have to understand it yourself, but also being able to carry it out to the people around you, and also be able to just maybe stand in front of the group and take the stage and explain it. It's very valuable, and I think it will also be very rewarding for yourself because you will get a lot of positive feedback out of that. That's how I always experienced it.
So we're living in a world where people are fearful of AI taking over their jobs. But you're saying that having the human side in the business is going to put you at an advantage, along with the innovation and the education.
Definitely, yes. I think that is unreplaceable.
Okay, so the young people coming into your business that you're working with, what do you see them getting right, and where do you see them sometimes struggling?
Yeah, I think that what is difficult for them now, and what was already difficult for when I started, is that when you look at construction technology in general, but also with all the facade technology and solutions, if you would have started your job, I don't know, 40 years ago, there was a limited amount of solutions. But that has evolved so far that when you step into the facade industry now, you have to first catch up on everything that happened in the past to understand all those evolved technologies. So you have to start at the basis and then learn how this technology evolved and what all the new technologies actually mean. Sometimes it's easy to forget the basis, what you're trying to achieve. So you start thinking in too complex engineering solutions when it's maybe not necessary. It has already been invented before in the past. And I think for people starting now in the facade industry, it's quite a lot to catch up to what has been happening in the last years, let's say. So it will take them quite some time to really get up to speed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to switch gears for a moment, and we'll move on to something a bit more lighthearted.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you 5 fast questions,
Okay.
and we'll start with what's the best Dutch comfort food after a long, hard day at work?
Best Dutch comfort food. There's only one, and that is we call it friet speciaal. That is French fries with curry, mayonnaise, and raw onion on top of it. So
Oh, right.
I think many people wouldn't appreciate that outside of our borders.
Okay. What's the best advice that you've ever received?
That I received. Well, I do remember when I was actually already working at Permasteelisa Group, I wanted to actually go back to continue studies. And I was really doubting whether I should continue in my mechanical engineering or if I actually wanted to switch to a bit broader to commercial engineering management. And I had a chat with actually some kids that I grew up with on my block where I used to live. And my parents, they grew up, they worked internationally, and they really convinced me that if you can combine your engineering skills also with certain commercial skills or other skills and people skills, that is invaluable. And that was probably the best advice I've ever got, because I made a decision on continuing my studies, and it has always benefited me from then on. That's for
Great.
sure.
Okay. What's your favorite holiday destination?
My favorite holiday destination.
Hmm.
That's a very good question. I would say generally somewhere where it's warm and somewhere where we do not have to do very much. We really tend with our family tend to like all inclusives where we can just sit at the pool, look at the kids, enjoy, swim, run past the buffet. That is the best sense of holiday for us.
I appreciate what you're saying. If you were not working in facades, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I would definitely still be working in engineering, 100% sure. Maybe I would be working more in the car industry.
Okay. And what still excites you about this industry?
What excites me is every day is that we are able to travel abroad for our projects. So we work locally with local teams, with people that you know very well, but you never know what project is coming up and where you will be traveling tomorrow, to what capital, and what people you will actually be meeting there around the table to discuss the next upcoming project. It's always a surprise, and that's always, I always really like that very much.
Great. Okay. Well, this feels like a good place to finish. But before we wrap up, I have one final question. If you were advising a client or a project team on concept design tomorrow, what would you want them to think differently about facades?
I would say trust the engineers, trust the technology. So we have a lot of regulations nowadays. There are regulations, there are guidelines, a lot of opinions. But let's just sit down at the table and take it back to the basic engineering. Think logically and think logical solutions. And I would really like to clients to think about that. Appreciate the engineer and listen to their way of thinking, and maybe you will get something out of it.
Great. Well, Tim, thanks for your time today. I've really enjoyed the conversation and your perspective that you've shared.
Me too.
And
Thank you.
thanks for joining me on the Faces of Facades. I wish you a good day.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank you.